Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Janes and this is my very first process video. I'm really excited to share it with you, so let's just jump straight into the layout. I'm going to be using all the papers and photos that you see there. I'm using a couple different collections by Amy Tan, and I'm going to start on a piece of white daisy cardstock that is a close to my heart cardstock, and I'm going to be doing some mixed media work on that. So off camera, I added a layer of clear gesso. The gesso is just going to give a nice barrier between the cardstock and the mixed media. So that way the mixed media sits on top of the gesso and doesn't soak into the cardstock, so it stays that nice, bold, vibrant yellow color there. And the mixed media product that I'm using is a product from Shimmerz. It is Lemon Drop Dazzlers, and it's actually a texture paste. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the packaging technique. If you're not familiar with the packaging technique, basically what it is, you just take a piece of packaging, whether it's from stickers or embellishments that you have on hand, and you just add your mixed media products directly to the packaging, and then maybe add a little bit of water, and then just smush it down onto your cardstock. And it's gonna leave this nice, fun variation of pattern on there. It's different each time that you do it. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's a technique that I use quite often. So that's what I'm doing there. Now, as I mentioned, the Dazzlers is a texture paste. So even with the water to thin it out, it still went on kind of thick. So I'm just using my water brush there to smooth it around and just smudge out any thick areas. And then I'm gonna come back in with the packaging again, just to kind of smooth that out to give it the finish that I was looking for. So I'm gonna spend a little time getting that done and just kind of mixing things around where I want it. And that just takes a few moments. And once I have that done, I'm going to bring that acetate piece in just to make sure that I'm not covering up too much of that mixed media work, and it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to set it aside to dry, and I'm going to move on to getting my papers and photos adhered to that acetate piece. The acetate piece is from the Amy Tan collection, Finders Keepers, and I'm also adding a couple pieces from her newer collection, Better Together, and I'm going to be using that 4x6 cut apart piece there with that has the hello speech bubble on it, and then a couple 3x4 cards that I'm going to layer together and then add to my photo cluster grouping. So I'm just lining everything up where I want it and making sure that it's straight. That's the nice thing about that Versamat there. It has lines on it, so I'm able to see straight through the acetate to make sure things are lining up correctly. So I'm still just positioning things on there, getting my photos arranged. The photos that I'm using are from my son's 4th birthday party, and they're just a few different pictures of his facial expressions when I was taking pictures of him by his cake. So I'm still just getting things lined up, getting it all down on there, and then I'm going to move on to finding some embellishments. And I had went through my stash ahead of time just to kind of grab some things that I thought that might work well. And you're going to see me start to pull some of those things in just to see what's going to work and fit. All of those embellishments you see on the right there are Heidi Swapp, and they are chipboard pieces that can be run through the Minc. And I will do that in a little bit. I'm going to use some silver foil. I tend to be a gold kind of girl, but I thought with all the yellow that was going on with the layout that the silver would stand out a little bit better. So that is what I end up using. And I just am going through some products that I had pulled out of my stash that are in that bowl there. There's lots of different products from different manufacturers. There's some Amy Tan. I think there's some Little Yellow Bicycle and just some odds and ends in there. A couple things are from close to my heart, and I'm just kind of playing around right now, just seeing what would fit and what's going to work well. Those two button brad type embellishments down there don't end up making it onto the layout, but they are super cute. Now I'm just going through, the Dazzlers is dry, and I just wanted to see how everything was fitting together, and I noticed there was a bald spot in the color there. So I'm just using my water brush just to add a little bit more of the color just so that it flows all together and there's not any bare spots. So now that I have that added, I am going to be moving on. I'm going to be pulling in some balloons that I believe are from another Amy Tan collection, and I start by positioning them right above that photo, but when I adhere them down, it almost looks like the balloons are coming directly out of the top of my son's head, so I wasn't really happy with the positioning. So I end up moving them to the other side, right above those 3x4 cards, and I like that position a lot better. It just seems to fit better there. Next, I'm going to bring in this happy sticker, and it's from Heidi Swapp also, and I ran it through the Minc with the same silver foil that I used on the two chipboard pieces down there. And now I'm just going to keep playing with some embellishments. I'm going to bring in a wood veneer piece that says happy, and then I'm also going to bring in some letters that spell out the word hooray. And those are actually from a Dear Lizzie die that I cut on toner paper and ran through the Minc just as I did the word happy and those two chipboard pieces. Next, I'm going to stamp some journaling lines onto that 3x4 card. I'm going to use that as my journaling spot for the layout. So I grabbed the Documenting Moments stamp set from Close to My Heart and also Outdoor Denim ink from Close to My Heart to get those journaling lines stamped on there just to make sure that my journaling would be straight. That specific ink color is no longer available from Close to My Heart. It is retired, but it matches this collection really well. It actually matches the blue in that 3x4 card perfectly. And I'm going to use second generation stamping with those lines. I didn't want them to be too bold on that 3x4 card. So I stamped off once and then stamped it onto the 3x4 card and it ended up working out perfectly. And then at this point, I realized that I want to paint that wood veneer the same color as my background. So I'm just going to use that same Lemon Drop Dazzlers, just stick my finger right down in there and add a couple layers just right on top of that wood veneer. And it paints it the perfect yellow color. It matches beautifully with the background. And I'm going to bring a paintbrush in just a second just to clean up any excess that may be left on there. So at this point, I'm going to go back to some embellishing. I'm going to grab those letters that spell hooray and get those positioned onto the paper where I like. And then I'm just going to start grabbing some more embellishments, pulling them in, seeing what's going to fit well here and there. I do bring in another wood veneer piece, and my title actually ends up being Hello Happy Number 4. And I believe both of those wood veneer pieces that I use are from Studio Calico. There you see me pulling in some Amy Tan enamel dots. And then I also, that yellow star, I believe, is from Freckled Fawn. Next, I'm going to paint the number 4, and I'm going to use a different Shimmerz product for that. I'm going to use the Aqua Hues Blue Moon, and it's just this really deep blue color. And the paint comes dry and you add water to it. And when you first add the water, it almost has a watercolor texture to it. But the longer that the water sits in the container, the thicker the paint becomes. So I'm just going to add a couple layers initially, and then I'm going to let the paint sit for a little bit so that way it gets a little thicker. And I'll come in and add just a couple more layers. Here I'm showing you that I added some stitching off camera, just right down the center of the photos and then across the word hooray. And now I'm going to start adhering things down, and I'm going to use liquid glass, which is similar to Glossy Accents, but it is Close to My Heart's version. And now I am just kind of moving things around and positioning that happy sticker so that way those wood veneer pieces will fit well on that 4x6 card. And then this is at that point where I decide that the color isn't quite dark enough on those wood veneer pieces. So that paint has had time to absorb some of that water. So it's a little bit thicker. So I was able to get more coverage on those two wood veneer pieces. So I'm just going to keep adhering things down. I do decide to adhere that star right up there by the balloons. And now I'm going to start adhering those two chipboard pieces. There's a nice visual triangle with those silver minked pieces with the happy sticker, the word hooray, and then those two chipboard pieces on the bottom. So it creates a nice visual triangle on the layout, and it helps your eyes kind of dance around and just take in all the details. I brought in some Amy Tan heart enamel dots there, and I'm going to position some of those around the layouts. I did also add a strip of Amy Tan washi underneath the bottom two photos on the layout. It just gives the photos something to kind of ground themselves on so they don't look like they're just floating at the bottom of the page. I did adhere those two wood veneer pieces up there at the top now. And I'm going to come in with a couple more enamel hearts. Those don't end up staying down there. I end up moving them up to the top of the page, but I'm still just trying to find bits and pieces and odds and ends to add just a little bit more visual interest and detail to the layout. I do add a little bit of liquid glass to that happy sticker. The adhesive just wasn't holding real well onto the layout, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to move now that I know the exact position that I want it in. Next, I bring in some embellishments from Close to My Heart, and that's actually from the Retired Wonderful collection. And they have some real nice silver, they're almost like flare buttons that I was going to try to add in that bottom right-hand corner, but they end up being a little too large for where I was trying to place them. So I finally decided to bring some sequins in, and those are actually sequins that I bought in the craft aisle at Walmart, and it's just a rainbow collection. So the silver and the blue match really well. The blue is almost an identical blue to the shirt that my son has on. So I'm just going to grab some different sizes and just position them around and kind of cluster them here or there. And just once I figure out the placement, I'm going to bring some liquid glass in and adhere those to the layout. We're getting really close to being finished. Once those are down, the layout is complete. So I'm going to leave you with some still shots of the layout. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I plan on making many more. I'm hoping to have another one up early next week. So thank you so much for watching, and please be patient with me as I'm figuring out what's going to work best for me as far as editing and lighting and those things. So thanks again so much for watching.